Okay, I might make a start if that's okay with everyone. Okay, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us again. If this is your second or third or even fourth talk that you're joining us for, and anybody who's new, welcome. We're delighted to have you here. Before we start, I'd like to draw your attention to our code of conduct that'll help us have this event run as smoothly as possible. Just take a moment to have a look at this. You'll also find on your screen options a transcript if you'd like to use subtitles or the transcript for the talk at the end. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Estelle Raveloaritiana. Estelle is an ecologist whose research focuses on sustainable land use. She's about to start a postdoctoral position in the Sustainability, Agriculture and Technology Lab at Westlake University in China. She's also affiliated with the University of Antananarivo in Madagascar, where she's currently joining us from today, and the Department of Crop Sciences at the University of Göttingen in Germany. Today, she'll be talking to us about conducting ethical research in ecology that involves local communities based on her previous perspectives from a collaborative project in Madagascar. While Estelle is there sharing her screen, I will remind you that you can drop any questions that you might have into our chat box or our Q&A box or into the chat. And also that just to let you know that there might be some connection issues as Estelle goes through her talk, but that we'll work them out as we go along. Thank you so much for joining us, Estelle. Oh, I think your mic might be, there you go.
Yes. All right. Yes, thank you so much, Emma, for a very nice introduction. And hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining my presentation today. And I also would like to thank all the organizing committee of this talk series for their efforts of making this possible. And before I go further, I would like to apologize in advance to the audience for my English. It's very far from perfect, but I would do my best so that you can understand the messages that I convey during my presentation. All right, as it was already mentioned, my name is Dr. Estelle Raveloaritiana. I'm an incoming postdoc at Sustainable Agriculture Systems and Engineering Lab at Westlake University, China. And I work on knowledge transfer and farmers communication project. But today I will share with you my experiences and the lessons that I learned from the big collaborative project that I was part of during my PhD as an ecologist, and talk to you about how did we do to conduct ethical research that involves local communities in Madagascar. But before I go into the main purpose of the talk, I would like to tell you a bit more about myself. And so as you already know my name, and also so currently now I'm talking to you. I'm here in Madagascar at capital Antananarivo. I just finished my PhD exactly 3 months ago now, and so I'm in a process to join Westlake University as a postdoc. And beside that, I also would like to mention that I grew up in rural area in northwestern of Madagascar, as you can see here in the map. And so I spent all my childhood and my teenagerhood over there. So and currently I'm doing research in ecology, sustainable agriculture, and conservation. So it's a mix of different fields, but basically it's all going towards sustainable land use in general. So this is just to give you an idea that I have experiences as someone who grew up in rural areas or as part of local community, as well as a researcher from local level and also as an international researcher. And I really enjoy sharing my experience from both sides. And that's why I couldn't say no when Emma invited me to give talk into this webinar talk series and share my experience. And I know that I come from a bit of a different background as most of you guys, as I guess most of you are paleontologists. And knowing that, I will try to not to bore you so much into the detail about ecology, but I will go into more general things and share with you things that you can apply also in your field of research. So for my presentation, I will structure it into 3 parts, basically. First, I will briefly talk about the project that I was part of during my PhD, and a bit of to give you a bit of context, and then also about my PhD research, and then I will define what do we mean about ethical research and what are the possible challenges, and finally I will share with you the solutions. What I mean here is that the solution, what did we do to overcome the challenges and made the project Diversity Turn one of the most successful international collaborative projects in Madagascar. Okay, now let's begin with the collaborative project that I was part of called Diversity Turn Project, and my PhD research within that project. So first, Diversity Turn Project was a big international project, as I already mentioned, and it was a collaboration between Malagasy scientists, so people from Madagascar, and the German researchers, so students and researchers from Germany. And so we focused on our research in northeastern Madagascar. If you remember, so I'm from northwestern Madagascar, this part here. But so the northeastern Madagascar is in this black part of the map. And so we focused our research on vanilla in general. So why? Because Madagascar is a major producer of vanilla in the world, and around 40% of vanilla on international markets are from Madagascar. And in 2016 and 2017, there was a huge price boom of vanilla, and this of course caught the attention of international researchers and international organization, because vanilla are produced in agroforestry systems, so forests are sometimes transformed into vanilla agroforest, and this might have an impact on biodiversity and ecosystem services. And just to add to that, because Madagascar is a biodiversity hotspot, so we have a lot of endemic plants and animals and that you cannot find anywhere else. So preserving this biodiversity is one of the most important goals that we have in our country. And so vanilla production in northeastern of Madagascar plays a strong role into people's life in general, as well as into the environment of the region. So in our project, we were about 15 PhD students and postdocs from different disciplines, and we investigated jointly the social, economic and environmental aspects of vanilla cultivation in northeastern of Madagascar. And we did this by interlinking those fields, and we aim to achieve a deeper understanding of the complex currencies within the vanilla production and vanilla value chain. So for my research, I was, of course, part of the environmental aspects of the project. And so I studied plant biodiversity and ecosystem services within agricultural landscapes in Sava region, so that's the northeastern part of Madagascar. And of course, these involved farmers in all aspects of the data collection, because not only I did biodiversity assessment, meaning plant diversity assessment, but I also conducted interview with the local communities, with the village, within the village. And these required a lot of understanding of ethical research in many different angles. But what do we mean by ethical research, especially when we do research that involves different stakeholders, especially non-scientists as farmers, and what are the challenges that associate to that? So conducting ethical research can be defined maybe in very different ways, but today I just chose one definition to guide us into what do I mean by ethical research, and I chose the definition by Roberts and al. In 2011, and they stated that conducting ethical research is not just a matter of collecting information, but it concerned also with the dignity, rights, and safety and well-being of those who take part in the research. So the researchers and others involved in the planning and undertaking research should therefore ensure that this principle is central of the different elements in the research processes. But this aspect varies depending on the program and the communities as well. So the definition of ethical research should not just stop to the scientist perception or scientist level, as we also involve other people, other groups of people. And here, for example, farmers, because local people, they have their own way of doing things. They have their culture, beliefs, and languages that are different than ours. So as scientists are often not aware of this aspect when we define what is ethical research. And this might jeopardize the research that we do and also can make the outcome unreliable. So conducting research ethically have its challenges if we look into the culture, beliefs, and languages that are different between researchers and the local communities in general. But with challenges, there are solutions. But what are these solutions? Well, I think you have already heard about these probably before, but it's basically you can solve these problems through collaboration and inclusion through the different phases of the research. But to go into more detail about this aspect, I'm going to talk about different phases of research, particularly 3 phases of the research that we had in our project, and how we did the best we could to conduct the research with a lot of involvement of local communities. First, during the preparation phase, or ideally before developing the proposal, researchers must seek appropriate and necessary collaboration, and also must ask for permission from not only the home institution, but also the local institution and authorities. I also want to add that researchers should always respect local culture, beliefs, and rights. and also must consider the interest of the stakeholders which are involved in the planning and the management of the research from the beginning until the end. And in our project, trying to respect this, we had several stakeholder meetings with everyone involved within the project from the beginning until the end of the project period. And it's very important to include local communities from the beginning to avoid what we call parachute science. Now to another phase of the research, which is the research design and data collection. Collaboration and inclusion go hand in hand at this stage of research. This is where scientists and local communities or experts in local culture are complementary. For instance, as scientists, we design and analyze and publish data. So we have what we call ethics, research ethics board to approve the research or the survey that we want to do. But sometimes these ethic boards, they have criteria that are too broad that might overlook some specificity that might affect the outcome of the research. So here I have learned that it's really necessary to take 2 steps. First, look into the scientific aspects, for example, the technical, the framework, and then the ethical aspect from the scientist side, International Research Ethics Committee, for example, and then look into the cultural aspect. Here, this is where the scientists should be open to change things and also approach and respect the culture of the community. For example, there are sometimes questions that researchers want to ask, but in reality, these questions, they cannot be asked or they shouldn't be asked directly to the people because they are against the culture, or they are kind of like awkward question if you, for example, translate it into the language that people understand. So then the researchers should really collaborate with someone who really knows the community and how to ask these questions in a way that it still respects the community's cultures and beliefs, and the researcher also can still get the answer in the way that she or he wants to have, depending on the object of the research or the objectives of the research. So then it really, so I want to really stress that it's important to take time and explain what you are doing and so on to the people, and then go forward with the collection, the data collection, because what we did is that we collected data on people's farmlands. So we really took time to have a meeting with the people and explain them that these and these and this what we want to do, and these are the objectives, and this and this what we will do with the data. Because people sometimes, especially in the village, they are very suspicious. So you have to make sure that there is no shady business behind your research, because people sometimes think that if you are like from the big city, or if you are a foreigner, they think that you come there to grab their land, or you come there to like bring, like to harm them in a different way. So it's really important to clarify that what you want to do is a research, not a shady business or criminal things that they might think you are doing. And here, I also want to stress that that a researcher should be aware of one thing when working with local community. it's important to remove the language barrier. Meaning it's really important to have one person or like someone who can speak and understand the language and can even speak the dialect, so that there is no barrier between the groups of scientists and the local people, so that there is smooth discussion and exchange, and also someone who can really relate to their fear or to the situation, that someone who knows what's going on in the village. Otherwise, you come and you have no idea what's going on, and people are like, they look at you weird, and they are reluctant to collaborate with you. So having that person going with you into the village and introduce you and talk to them in a way that that person understands both sides, it really helps to kind of like ease the thoughts, or like to get rid of the fear for the local people. Next is the result communication. So for me, conducting research, ethical research, doesn't end with respecting different ethical things related to data collection, but it should also aim to share the results that you collected from the local community. And this is important because you need to build the connection and the trust with the local people. So an example about this, that I had an issue before I did my PhD. I conducted a study into a place, into like a zone of a new protected area. And so when I started to do the survey and I talked to people, and they were very reluctant to answer or even to welcome me to do the survey. And the reason was that they said, well, we have had many students coming from the same university as you. They collected a lot of data, but we never know what these data are. So I think we have had enough data from us, and we don't want to answer questions anymore because I think you have asked too many questions. So I think it's really important to go back and take time to go back and share results to the local people. And luckily with our project, we did this, and that the results communication really allowed us to actually discuss the finding with the local community and to understand if it fits into what they already know, or if it brought something new and to their knowledge, to beyond to what they understood so far. And it also gave them an opportunity to really exchange between the knowledge they have and the new output that we brought to them, the new things, the new knowledge that we brought to them. So so this is really important. So I understand that the contribution of one research might not change things to the society like in the short run. However, sharing these results contributes into the kind of like relationship between researcher and the local community, and this can bring beneficial externality that contribute into its development in a humble but practical way. What do I mean here is that so with our project, so we share the results, and so we had these posters, as you can see here in this photo, and then we shared them to the chief of the village. And so what happened is that not long time ago, one of the the research assistant, they conducted another study into the village, and they saw these posters hanging on the wall of the people, and they were very proud of it, saying that yes, we have had people coming to our village before, and they conducted studies, and these are the results that they got, which we really enjoy, and we want to have more and more collaboration in the village, so welcome. And this was like something that really we didn't really think, but it actually made difference, because if we didn't do the result communication, they never knew what are all these data that we collected for almost 2 years. We came back and forth into the village collecting data. So it's not only about contributing to something like concrete or like a huge change, but it's important to share the results so that they can also be proud of it, and something that they can share with other people. So there, it's really important to share the results. So including local scientists also, like if we talk about result communication into the scientist side, including local scientists and people who were involved into the research, into the publication, is also important. This is very important to end the form of exploitation of scientists. I know exploitation is a very strong word, but I explicitly use it because it's something that has been that is very common sometimes, that local scientists are used to collect data, but then are not involved into the publishing. So I don't think it's fair or ethical when someone invests a lot of time into helping a scientist into the field, allow them to collect an amazing data, and then that person is not involved into the publication or as a co-author in the paper, when you know that that person can also benefit with the fact that being an co-author in the paper. Here, by including someone who might also benefit from the co-authorship, and also that really helped you to collect the data, is for me to create like a win-win situation, because it doesn't take away the credibility of the person who is leading the paper, for instance, at least in my opinion. And so I think including that, it's a win-win, because also the person helped you to get the data that you can publish into a prestigious journal. So I think it's a payback in a way that involving that person into the publication is also a fair way of collaborating, and also to avoid the local people of feeling of being exploited in a different way. But I know that it is often very tricky. It's a tricky subject for a researcher to discuss about a co-authorship. But again, it's really important to be open about it, to be aware of this fact, and to discuss and come up with like a mutual agreement or understanding. Otherwise, a form of neo-colonialism in the science continues, I'm afraid, and this is not something that we want to perpetuate in the research community. So with all these details, in a nutshell, conducting research that involves local community have its challenges in many different ways, but there are also ways to overcome them and to still succeed despite the difference in culture and in beliefs, and also the languages. And these require mainly three things. First, collaboration, so collaborate with the local institution and scientists and different stakeholders, and also be inclusive in a way that value the diversity of the team and the strength of the both team. One can introduce to the village, to the culture, and so on, and the other one take in charge of publishing, but both are complementary. And the last but not least, communicate the finding to maintain the connection and to give people the overview of the outcome of the research, which I think they are the first people that might really need this outcome of the research. So it's important to communicate result to the local community and include local scientists into the publication process. So that was all for my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope I did not give you too much information. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And if we still have time, if not, you are also invited to contact me via email, Twitter, or WeChat. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Estelle. That was absolutely wonderful. It was so informative as well. Thank you for putting that together. We already have some questions. If anybody else is thinking of some things, pop it in the Q&A box or into the chat and we can pick it up there. If you're happy to answer some questions, I'll go ahead with what I've got already. You're still there? It'd be such a pity to lose you right at the very end.
And then I'm here.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Okay, so first question was, how did the people on whose land you were working respond when you explained to them what you were doing? Were they interested or were they cautious?
That's a good question. I mean, we worked with many farmers, so so it was different processes for us to select the land. We collected the data. So first we went to different villages to first approach the chief village and explain the research. And then that chief of the village, then if he or she was convinced or trusted that we are not having a shady business behind it, and then he selects people that might have the land that we want to do the survey or to do the data collection. And some people, they accepted it, some didn't. They didn't accept because they had some difficulties before with researchers. And then these, of course, as I said, if one researcher have a difficult relationship or whatever before, and they are very reluctant and very suspicious. So we had mix of people, but in general, because we had people not from the village itself, but at least from the district or the commune. So that person understands the context. And so it really helped us to kind of find the right channel to talk to the people. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question.
No, it absolutely did. It's important to recognize the nuances there. Yeah. Another question which relates to this actually is, do you think it was easier for you to engage with local communities because you are from Madagascar yourself? Do you think someone who's not from there would have the same response?
Yes, I think it was way much easier for me because I'm from here. And especially my, so the region where I'm from is not far from where we conducted the study. So we had the dialect that we speak is very similar. So we share a lot of words, like similar words. So it was very easy. Sometimes I didn't even need to come with the local people anymore to go to the village, but I could just go and speak to the farmers myself. But for people from outside who don't speak the language or the dialect, it can be very difficult. So there you really need to have that key person to go with you and talk to the people. And this is not, doesn't mean like, this is not only for foreigners, like for people from outside of Madagascar, but even within Madagascar, we have a different region. So we have 23 regions and we have 18 ethnics. So every single ethnics, we have kind of like our own dialect. So we have our own words sometimes. So for example, if I would go to the south of Madagascar, I will definitely need someone from there because the dialect that they speak, it's completely different than mine. So there you need to have that one person to introduce, can speak at all, like can speak a dialect that you can understand, and that person needs to speak the dialect where you go. So it's a bit complicated. So, yeah.
It does, certainly does sound complicated. A question has just come in, which I'm going to ask now, which relates exactly to this, is how difficult was it logistically to ensure that you had a local dialect speaker on your team? Is this something that you would budget for in a grant or funding application?
Yes, we had that in the budget of our project. So I think it's a mandatory, at least from what I understood, to have to hire someone as a local guide or a research assistant to go with you into the village, because you cannot just go there on your own. So usually as a researcher, you need to have this, and it's usually included in the budget of the research when you ask for like a grant or something like that. So it was already planned way before I joined the project, I think, because I joined a little bit later than most of the people in the project. And yeah, so it was already there, like, okay, we go into the field, we hire this number of assistants. So yeah, we went there, and so we hired people, and yeah, so that was the process.
Great, it really shows the importance of planning ahead, definitely.
Yes.
Speaking of planning, then the other question was, how would you recommend people best get in contact with local people in an area that they are not familiar in researching? And connecting with somebody at a local university or something like that, what would you recommend based on your experiences?
Good question. I think it depends on the field of research, of course, but for us, we were like ecologists, and so we basically had like connections to the local ecologist community. So there are some organizations that work at the region. So we approach them and like discuss and like ask them who is the person, the key person, like that knows a lot throughout the region, for example. Or like we ask if they have worked in certain villages or certain part of the region, and then ask them if they have like recommendation for the key person. So it's important to connect with those local organizations and also the local university. We were very lucky that there is a regional university in the region. So within our project, we had 2 people from the regional university doing also the PhD with me in the project. So that was really helpful. And one of the PhD student, she's even from one of the village where we worked on. So, but we all complemented in very different ways, but it turns out it worked perfectly. Very diverse, but complementary in a way. So yeah, it's important to to contact the local organization, whether university or NGOs or association. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that. We're absolutely perfectly on time, so I might just leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us and withstanding your connection issues to be able to join us for the full 45 minutes. So we'll let you go now. Before we go, just to mention that the next talk is on Friday at 4 p.m. UTC, and it will be given by Louisa Fernanda King, who is an education expert, and he'll be talking about cooperation or competition towards meaningful scientific projects through horizontal collaborations, which is sure to be a great one to end on, kind of following from what Estelle was talking about, engaging with local communities today. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we hope to see you on Friday. Thank you so much again, Estelle.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I hope I was not talking too much and too much information, and feel free to contact me if you still have any questions. And yeah, you can always join me via email, Twitter, or WeChat. So thank you, everyone. And yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much.